Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to never miss an update.
Hello everyone. Today we are going to dive deep into the most seductive aspect of marketing, which is advertising. What is it about advertising that it attracts some of the best talent out there across disciplines and yet ends up losing them to other fields? Is branding still relevant today? And even if it is the advertising agency still relevant today? What are the kind of people who can have great careers in advertising, and what is the typical day of a CEO like? These are some of the questions that we are going to pose to Kunal Jeswani, CEO of Ogilvy India, in today's episode of CXO Central. Okay guys, before we begin, here's a small message for you. As viewers of CXO Central, we know that you have big aspirations for your career. With this in mind, if you want to become advisors and truth tellers to some of the biggest CEOs in the world, then consulting is a great career option for you. Which is why Altuni brings in Consulting Festival for anybody who wants to get introduced to the world of consulting by some of the biggest names in consulting and embark on a very successful career. Details are in description. Now, let's get on with the interview. Kunal, why is building a brand more important than selling something immediately?
Let's talk about why building a brand is important.
Yeah.
More important than the other, right? Let's say, today we have tons of examples of new disruptive products or services that do not need to say anything more than what they do for you in your life, right? If you've come up with an Uber and that's your product or service to the world, all you need to do really is communicate the ease of that product or service.
Right.
What does the brand stand for? Nobody knows, right? Nobody knows. Nobody cares. What they care about is great service, great app, fantastic to use. Let's do it, right?
Right.
If you're a soap or a shampoo brand, you better be building your brand. Right? Because the differentiation between your product and somebody else's product is so low that if you haven't built a brand, if you haven't built a point of view, if you haven't built imagery that I'm buying into as a consumer, you're dead in the water. If your only focus is on performance marketing and sales, you're dead. You're completely dead, right? So, and even if you've got a fantastically differentiated product or service, it'll stay differentiated for a short period of time. Right. Sooner or later, there are going to be 10 players. That's when the brand becomes important, right? That's when the imagery becomes important. That's when I'm buying into saying, hey, how does that one make me feel versus what does it do for me?
Right.
And that sense of what does it make me feel only comes from brand building. It doesn't come from anywhere else.
Right. There was a time when any brand thinking of doing a campaign would go to an ad agency and say that, okay, let's craft a strategy around this and then let's start a campaign. Now the processes have become slightly more fragmented, where there are brands who can directly go to influencers, for example, and tell them that, listen, this is the message I want to put out.
Yeah.
There are brands that run on specific platforms, and then the platform provides whatever ideas that can work within their boundaries. How has the agency itself evolved over the years, and where do you think the agency model is going to be 5 years from here?
First of all, video becoming dramatically more dominant over the last few years, right?
Right.
And with video, again, storytelling becoming more interesting across digital, right? Now it doesn't matter. For example, if you're the Star Network, right? And you were seen as a dominant television player. Your product is now Hotstar, right?
Yes.
And those networks have managed to shift as well. If you look at the Bennett Coleman group, right, where in our head still the primary piece is the newspaper, but they've shifted quite dominantly onto the
digital times internet. Yes,
very heavy. Not just that, but across their TV platforms as well. And any media agency that's worth its salt, or any creator that's worth its salt, right, has adopted the digital platforms because they understand where that's where the money is coming from, right?
Right.
As they've adapted, a lot of content and storytelling is shifted digital. Now, formats are different, durations are different. It's still a huge, lovely mix of short format advertising, long format content, original content, influencer-led content. There's tons of stuff, and it'll take time for everybody to figure out what's the best approach within this mix, because the mix itself is changing every day.
Right.
And then if you look at the language piece now, right, which is where you will find now the shift is again moving heavily into local languages, right? And digital is moving into multiple languages.
Yeah.
And agencies, unfortunately, are still just about grappling with English across all of their digital touchpoints, right?
Right.
For agencies to evolve now into saying, listen, not only do I get all of your performance marketing, not only am I able to now understand all of your content creation requirements across all of your video touchpoints, not only can I do all of that fantastically in English, track it, monitor it, give you metrics on it, but now I can do it, in every language that you need it done. And I have people who can do it language first, right? Again, not that whole, it's that entire shift from English back to languages that we're going to see again on digital.
Right.
So I think for an Indian agency, right, what is the future? I think 2 or 3 things. One is, I think any of us, if we forget heart of why clients come to us as agencies, right? And they come to us for our creative product. And what I mean by the creative product is our ability to tell a compelling story and sell something. To really make people feel something. Now, the reason that the agencies will exist over time is if they're able to hold that better than anybody else.
Kunal, this seems like a tough job, to be able to make people feel a certain way, to be able to understand so many brands. It means that the agency has to continuously be able to attract the best creative talent that is out there. Do you think the agency is still an attractor of the best talent, best creative talent in the country? And if it's not, what are the things it needs to do to correct that?
Yeah, so look, when you're starting off in your career, right, you decide to take up the craft of writing, the craft of art, right? Or you say, hey, listen, in this new world, I want to play in social, I want to play in web design or design of any kind. Right? In 20 years ago, there were few opportunities available.
Right.
And advertising was an extremely attractive opportunity because amongst all the opportunities available, this was one of the ones that really stood out. Right? I said, what a fantastic career this could be for a creative person. The reality today, and you're right, is that there are 20 other options for you. You can even within the space of design, there are many slices of design that you can do. Right? Within the space of writing and the craft of writing, you can become a content writer. You can write for a plethora of different types of content companies.
Right.
So while I think the options have opened up tremendously, I think the inflow of talent is also opening up, because as all of these options open up, more and more people choose less traditional fields to go into. So more and more people are saying, I don't want to stay in boring jobs. I want to be in this creative field, right? Whatever that broad creative field, right? I want to be writing movies. I want to be writing content. I want to be shooting stuff, right? And you could do any of that, right? Today, if you want to become a filmmaker, you could start off straight and become a filmmaker. Right?
Yes.
The journeys are all different and they're all difficult. None of them are easy. Right? Advertising isn't easy either. Right? It's a fairly tough job to stay in and survive it.
Right.
As is anything else, right? Today, it looks hugely attractive to say, hey, everybody's making content on Netflix. I will become a Netflix content maker. But how many people actually get there? I think creative people are attracted by seeing their work out in the world.
Right.
That is the primary attraction. The secondary attraction is having people appreciate that work.
Yeah.
And it's very simple. It's saying, I created something. I want to see it out in the world. I want to see it on some platform, somewhere, right? Anywhere.
Right.
And secondly, I want to go to my family, friends, my social circle, my social media page and say, hey, I did this, right?
Right.
And then if I win 2 awards on the back of that, even better. I feel even better because I feel a little validated.
But then, Kunal, I know that Vodafone did the Zuzu campaign, or I know that Surf Excel did the Daag Achhe campaign. I don't know who was the writer behind it.
Yeah, but you don't know that, right? But that writer's entire friend circle, family, and community knows it. And that's what's important for them, right? As creative people in advertising, we're not authors or directors or actors, right? Not like when we do a film or when we do a print ad, our names come at the bottom, right? Or it doesn't say designed by and written by. All that
it doesn't.
Gets that credit. So they don't come into advertising expecting to become stars who are recognizable on the street, right? If you're in advertising, unless you're Piyush Pandey, which is one in a century, right?
Right, absolutely.
You walk into an airport and people will recognize you. Right? So you're not going to be, a Shah Rukh Khan or a David Dhawan or anybody else, right?
Right. Kunal, let's shift the focus now from the industry to the world around it. One of the things I've noticed, we mentioned Amazon, the likes of Apple and the likes of Flipkart at home and Zomato, etc., are all turning into media companies in some way or the other. They're all creating content. They all want to put out stuff. What is this new wave that is happening, and why is that happening?
So let's talk about two things, right? One is media consumption. Okay. Today, the bulk of what is being consumed by you, by me, by anybody else across all of their screens is a mix of two things. Right? One is high budget, professionally produced content. Okay?
Right.
So I'm a Marvel fan. I'm a Star Wars fan. I wait for every movie to come out, every show to come out. When it's out, I'm watching it. Right? And I'm watching it through a paid service.
Right.
Whether it's Netflix or Hotstar or whatever it is, right? I signed on to Hotstar because I wanted to watch The Mandalorian. So I paid that annual fee because I said that's the content I want to watch. Right? So there is one side of the content business, which is high budget, high production value content that is built to be monetized as content.
Right.
So rights for it are sold all over the world and stuff. So that is the business that some large players are getting into.
Yes.
So an Amazon, for example, through Amazon Prime is in that business, right? That's a different content business because you're in it to monetize the content.
Yes.
Most sports franchises, most sports in themselves, right, are packaged and sold as content.
Right.
IPL, for example, for the first time last year, played to empty stadiums. Right? Empty stadiums last year. Not talking about this year. Last year.
Right.
And that to me was defining, because if you're going to hold a tournament at the level of IPL and say it's okay if I don't have fans in the stadium, you're clearly only creating that
for the TV audiences.
Yeah. So IPL, to my mind, last year demonstrated clearly that the entire tournament is being created as content.
Yeah.
Right. That you watch, you monetize, and that's what it's for. That's the only reason it's there.
Right.
Then there is content of a different kind, which many of us actually spend a lot of time on, which is the stuff you see on a Facebook watch.
Yes.
Which is lower production value content, but still stories. So you're cutting, pasting, and packaging other content, right? You're creating your own stories, but shorter format, lower production value, right? But it's still content that is created for the purpose of monetizing and nothing else.
Right.
It's not to sell any other product. It's just to monetize itself. The third type of content is personal content, where you have a whole range of influencers saying, "I am the content. Come and watch me."
Right.
Now, if you go to China, there are tons of influencers who spend their whole day selling stuff to you.
That's insane, right? As a social commerce at the absolute peak.
So from morning to night, we'll pick up a product and say, "Here, I'm going to sell this to you." So that's they're creating their own content.
Yeah.
In India itself, you have tons of food influencers and fashion influencers and influencers of every kind, where the content is themselves. Celebrities, quasi-celebrities, non-celebrities who are building their own following, right? Home chefs, right? Everyone creating content saying, "I'm the content. What I do, what I say is what you want to consume," right? Again, there's no clear brands here, right? Brands are not producing that content. Right? They're not content companies in the sense that Your brand goes to an influencer and says, create 5 pieces for me, you're not a content company.
That's not a content company.
Influencer is a
Absolutely.
content company in his or her own right, right?
Hmm.
Brands are also realizing, many brands, that saying, hey, listen, if everybody's going to be creating content, and if consumers are spending half their time watching the very high budget paid for content, which we can't compete with, but they're spending half their time with low value content,
Right.
but they're just watching stuff that they enjoy. Now we have two choices. Either we can pay those people to put in ads in the middle of their content, right? Whether it's an ad that is clearly visibly an ad, or whether it's a quiet promotion.
It's an integration kind of a thing. Yeah.
Either way, right? Or we can create our own content.
Right.
Right. And when I say create our own content, I mean create our own content where our product or service is the hero. So I think many clients and brands will play with content.
Right.
Like they will play with influencers, they will play with other forms of doing stuff. And some of them will see success for a while. Some of them may not. Right? If they have the strength of conviction to really feel that this is a place that over time can really build something powerful for us, right? And they consistently do it over a period of time, I think you'll see success. The problem for many brands when they play with content is that they will find it difficult to monetize that content. The content will become an expenditure. For everybody who's in the other side of the content world, your content is not an expenditure. Your content is a source of revenue. When you're a marketer and you start creating content for your own product or service, very few people are going to come and pay you for that content. Right? So it becomes an expense.
Let's come to your role as a CEO. Okay. Firstly, it's difficult for our audiences to understand what do CEOs do. Okay. So if you could throw a little bit of a light on that यार तुम इतने सारे साल काम करके CEO बन जाते हो फिर करते क्या हो? What do you do on a day-to-day basis?
So in my role as CEO of Ogilvy India, I have a few primary responsibilities. The first one is the cultural health of the company, and the long-term growth of the company. And I'll tell you what that means to me. Ogilvy is a highly creative agency. It has a reputation in market of being the most creative, most effective agency in the country.
Right.
My primary job is to keep that culture alive, which is when somebody joins the company, for them to feel that to the day they leave the company. When they leave the company and go somewhere else, to feel wherever else they go, it's not as creative an environment as what they had known. So one part of my job is pushing that every single day. Now, how do I do that? By hiring the best people I can find, by keeping that culture open, by being a little flexible in culture on what is permitted in the company, what is not permitted in the company. Right? We're not I wear a t-shirt to work every single day. This is not because I'm at home, right? When I go to office as well, in my entire career, I've worn a t-shirt every single day of the week. And I'm the CEO of the company. Right? We push people like to have a point of view in every meeting, irrespective of which client is in the meeting. If you don't agree with something, please say it. If you have a point of view, say it respectfully, for God's sake, but say it, right? Because the reason you're here, the reason the client is paying for your time and has you in the meeting is because they want you to have a point of view. If you don't have a point of view, there's no point, right? So that's the culture of creativity. That's one part of my job. The second is to ensure the company is healthy from a long-term growth perspective. Again, now that has two parts of it. One is the recognition that people come to us, clients come to us because they feel they want a different degree of creativity, different degree of effectiveness. So our quality of planning, our quality of account management, our quality of creative has to be fantastic. And I have to keep that alive, and I have to keep the company growing. So obviously there is the day-to-day grind of new business and pitches and managing existing clients and growth on existing clients. Right? And then the third part of my job is really an HR job, which is managing people. When you're the CEO of a creative business, you cannot manage a business with rules and hierarchy. Because again, creative people will leave. They don't thrive in that environment. Right? If I send out mails every week saying, here are 5 new rules and everybody has to follow these rules, right? It just won't work, right? So the managing people has to be done with a high degree of sensitivity for a creative culture and for a creative individual. And that, I like to think of it as, when you're running any organization, of course, you need a certain set of organizational rules on the basis of which the company runs, right? And I think of them as a box. And most companies, most large companies, that box is a rigid box. You can't step out of it, right? These are the rules of the company. They are valid for everybody. Anybody who steps out of it, sorry, you're going to get a letter from HR. You'll be called to some conference room and hauled up. I like to think of creative cultures as boxes, but with lots of gaps in them, right? Where you can step out once in a while, take a walk somewhere and come back in. And then the last part of my job is finance. It takes up a disproportionately large amount of time, but to me, that's the fourth part, right? So it's the creative culture, it's the long-term growth, it's HR, and the last part is the finance piece, which is just ensuring it is a healthy business, day after day, month after month, year after year.
All right. Okay, perfect. Thanks a lot, Kunal. This was a lot of fun. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
It was a lot of fun.